Hello, I am Jenna, and I will be with you through video for a couple of pieces of information to help you with your test. And so the first thing we're going to talk about is bacterias and viruses, and I want to give you an overview of what you'll be doing with the videos that I'll be presenting you with information from. So we'll also talk about allergens. I'll be spending some time talking to you about how to serve food safely. We'll be going over temperatures to serve food at. We'll be talking about developing managerial systems. We'll also be talking about what to do in the case of deliberate attack of your food. So you can see that there's a variety of things that we'll be discussing through video. Usually I'm here with you to do this, but unfortunately I couldn't be there with you today. So I hope that you're able to make some decisions to make the best of this. And I always remind people that you're responsible for your own education. And so you can use the verbal information that I'm giving you. So if you learn well through listening, you can also use the written information that you'll be provided with as well. And some people also really learn well through actually writing things down. If you're a doodler, then sometimes that helps you to maintain that information. And so the first thing that I want to talk to you about are bacterias and viruses. And you'll be following along with this paper right here. And this is something that I put together to help you to visualize things that are in your book. So you can actually find this information right in your book. It's just presented in a different manner. I think that this is helpful for people, especially because this section can often be overwhelming. People who are unfamiliar with bacteria and viruses, and so this is to kind of help you to make it a little less daunting. So you'll notice at the very top of your page, there's some really important information. It says bacteria. The best way to prevent a bacterial outbreak is to control the times and temperatures of your foods. And so you want to control making sure that food stays out of the danger zone. This is going to be on your test in some form or another. So you want to make sure that you have that information really well memorized. I want to take a step back also. We're going to be talking about viruses right after this, and you'll notice that there are 4 bacteria. And then on the next piece of paper that we're going to be looking at, there are 2 viruses. These 6 things make up what is called the Big 6. And the Big 6 are pathogens. So those are the bacterias and viruses and other illnesses that you can acquire through food. And so we're going to be talking about these Big 6, and you're going to need to know the names of the Big 6. You're going to know where they come from, what foods they often infect, and then what we need to do to prevent a foodborne illness. So let's look at the 4 bacterias that we'll be talking about today. So you'll notice on the chart that they are listed on the left-hand side, and I want to make them a little less daunting. So Salmonella typhi, let's talk about that one first. You'll notice that Salmonella typhi originates with humans, and it's also connected with, those pictures represent ready-to-eat foods and drinks as well. And so humans who develop typhoid fever carry this bacteria, and they can, when they get sick with it, they can contaminate foods with it. So let's think about this. If you're a learner who learns more through pictures, then the pictures on those pages will help. But it also helps to create storylines. And so a storyline for this, instead of calling it Salmonella typhi, you could call it Sammy T. And so Sammy T goes to work. He's got typhoid fever, doesn't know it, and he works at the salad bar, and he doesn't realize that he contaminates all of this food that he's working with. So Salmonella typhi, that helps you to remember. Its source is humans, and the foods that it often affects are ready-to-eat foods and beverages. Okay, so we're going to go down to the next one, and you'll notice that there's a lot of similarities in their sound because they are very similar in where they come from. But this one, instead of typhi, it's non-typhoidal salmonella. And so this one does not originate from humans. Instead, it originates in farms. And so you can think about all of the food that is affected by non-typhoidal salmonella. pretty much anything that you can eat. And so on the pictures, you'll see that there's dairy items, there's chicken, eggs, and produce. All of those things can be infected with non-typhoidal salmonella. And so to visualize that, you can kind of picture in your mind this beautiful farm setting, and the farm has a nice sign welcoming you to the farm. And this farm is called Non-Typhoidal Salmonella Farm. Okay, the next one is probably the one that's going to stick with you the most. It's the most disturbing. Shigella, it's the other S word, and you'll notice that Shigella originates with feces and flies. Such a lovely thought. And if you know the life cycle of flies, you know that when they feast on things such as feces, they will regurgitate that into our kitchens, and so they can be a huge problem for bacteria and viruses. Now, if you look at the food link, there's no foods listed on there because it's pretty much anything that can come in contact with human hands, which can be infected with feces, and also contaminated water sources. So every food can be contaminated with Shigella because of its source. Okay, guys, the next one, you may see the really long name of it. So interhemorrhagic, and I'm not saying that right, Shiga toxin producing Escherichia coli. You just need to remember E. coli. And when you see that on your test, you'll know that it's an abbreviation for its really not long name. And so it is actually something that when it's consumed into your body produces this bacteria. And it can also originate from cows. Now, let's get really specific about when this becomes a problem for us. We know that cows, when they're at when they're on a ranch, they are very well observed, and so the chances of them getting sick are pretty rare. However, when you're dealing with thousands and thousands of cows in a herd, if you have one cow that you find out was infected, then that cow's meat is processed through all of this machinery, and now that machinery becomes a problem for all of the other meat that's processed through that same machinery. And so now when we've got recalls, we're recalling thousands and thousands of pounds of meat because of this problem. And so you'll notice that the food link on there is ground beef. And so that is our most concerning thing because of that contact with machinery. Now, steaks are not as concerning because there was no contact with machinery inside, and all of the problems that could be caused by bacteria can be seared off in the cooking process. And you remember the best way to prevent a bacterial outbreak is to control our times and temperatures of food. So we do have that ability to kill off some bacteria when we are cooking foods correctly. Okay, now when we talk about viruses, you're going to be looking at this paper right here. So it's the smaller chart, and you'll notice that there are only 2 viruses listed on here that you need to be aware of. Now, we know in our world that coronavirus has become something that we're very aware of. That is not addressed in this particular book or on your test, so you don't need to worry about that for the testing purposes. But the problem with viruses is that they are not as easily destroyed as our bacterias are, and so they don't necessarily get destroyed when we even cook foods to the correct times and temperatures. So the best way to control a viral outbreak is hand washing. Now, I want you to notice that there are 2 basic viruses we're worried about, hepatitis A and norovirus. And you'll notice that the sources for both of these are feces, hands, and contaminated water. So when we talk about hands, your food links are your ready-to-eat foods, and also because water can be contaminated, crustaceans can be contaminated as well. Now, the 2 things listed at the bottom of your page, parasites and fungi, those are 2 separate things. They're not bacteria and they're not viruses, but they're things that we need to also know about to make sure that we're being careful. And we're making sure that we're buying our food from approved, reputable sources to make sure that we're avoiding parasites and fungi as well. So those are the basic ideas for our Big 6 that you need to be aware of for your test. This might be the most daunting section for you, so I would recommend that you spend some time studying it, get familiar with it before you take your test.